Welcome to Heartland Arms, where skill, safety, and training all come together. I'm Michael, and today we are going to cover reciprocity and firearm laws. Now, if you read any of the disclaimers and any of the stuff, we have there, I'm not a lawyer. We'll cover this, but I would always suggest looking up your laws, consulting a lawyer or attorney. If you have any questions on legal advice. We don't provide legal advice. We cover basis, but if you're looking for something like that, consult an attorney. Don't ask a law enforcement. I would suggest asking a lawyer. Police officers are supposed to know the law. However, a lot of legal or laws are subject to interpretation. So your best bet is to go right to a lawyer. All right. Now, whether you're carrying concealed, traveling with your firearm, knowing how the laws change across state lines can keep you out of trouble and on the right side of the law. It's not the most exciting part of gun ownership, but it is a very, very important piece when you're going through that. So reciprocity is an agreement between states to recognize each other's concealed carry permits, or some of them will recognize their inability, their ability just to carry in that state. So it gets kind of crazy. Now, think of a driver's license, okay? Now, a driver's license, whatever state you're in, and when you drive to another state, if you get pulled over, you show them your driver's license, it works in that state. I wish that concealed carry permits worked the same way, but they don't. Okay, there's no national standard. Okay, so the gun laws vary widely from state to state. So it is up to you to know what's legal where you're going. Okay, you have to look up the laws. You have to look up and go from there. Now, of course, I'm in Omaha, Nebraska. A Nebraska concealed carry permit might be honored in Texas, but California might not recognize it. The fact of the matter is California doesn't recognize anything from any other state. Hopefully that'll change. We'll see. And even if your permit is valid in that state, the rules on carrying, storing that firearm, and some of the signage that you have to obey may differ. So you got to understand that reciprocity is all about a permission, not a protection, okay? Just because you're legal to carry in one state doesn't mean your rights travel with you in the same way, okay? There are places that you could go look this stuff up too. So each state makes its own firearm laws. It's based off their local government, courts in there, and voter preferences in that area. So what that means is some states may allow open carry, some may ban it, okay? Some have magazine capacity limits, others don't. Some require permits, others are constitutional carry. How this will affect you depends on how you're transporting your firearm, where you can legally carry. So can you carry it around schools, restaurants, public buildings? Do you have to go by signage that they post? Are there gun-free zones that you have to abide? There's a lot of factors that go into carrying in your home state and carrying in other states as well. As a responsible gun owner, it is your job to read up before you travel. One mistake can get you in serious legal issues, and you could sometimes end up in jail if you're not paying attention to what you're doing. And once that happens, laws are so. I'm all for laws. I like law and order, but you have to pay attention to what you're doing, because once you start losing some of your rights, it's very hard to get them back. Okay, so before you cross any state line, you have to do your homework. Okay, so you can check the official state websites. Generally, somewhere in there, they'll have something that shows who can carry, maps that will help, lists, and things of that nature. And by design, they're not easy to find. Now, you can use some verified apps. I think there's USCCA. There's also concealed carry CCW sites. They're often updated with the reciprocity laws and legal details for that. I think a lot of times I actually use USCCA. I just went on traveling, and I went from Omaha, Nebraska, all the way to California and back. I crossed a lot of state lines. Now understand that I had to do my due diligence to look up what type of firearms were allowed, were there any limitations that I had to follow, and that determined what I was even leaving the house with, okay? How I was going to carry it, and if I went to a place that didn't allow me to conceal carry, what were their requirements for storing, traveling, and going through that, and making sure I had the right equipment to make sure that I was legal in every state that I crossed. That's what you have to do. Now, you also have to read the state-specific carry rules. Don't just go to these websites and say, yes, no. There's other things that you have to look at. So, a lot of states will have a duty to inform police. Some states don't. Some places will have a no carry zone, so you have to look at those. And they're different from every state, okay? Ammo restrictions. How many rounds can I carry? How do I have to carry that? Do they have magazine limits? Can I only carry so many rounds in that magazine? So here I might be able to have a magazine, and this is of course just a pellet gun, but my magazine could carry 16 rounds, but when I get into California or another state, they may limit that to 10. I have to know that before I go over there and start violating laws from another state. You also have to look at the vehicle transport laws. Where do they have to be? In the trunk area, in a locked container? Do they have to be padlocked? Does it have to be, what are the requirements for that state? That's what I always recommend before you get too far into traveling. Look this up. So you may have a valid permit in a neighboring state, but carrying in a posted gun-free zone could still be a violation, even if your permit's recognized. So they could say, yes, you could carry, but there's some exceptions. You violated that exceptions. Guess what? Now you could have your firearm confiscated. You could end up with jail time, fines. There's all kinds of stuff that could happen. So pay attention to what you're doing. So when you're traveling, what I would recommend, transporting a firearm across state line, if you don't have a concealed carry permit, or that state doesn't offer, it doesn't have that option, I would always recommend keeping your firearm unloaded. So unload your firearm, and then you want to keep it in a locked case, completely separate from any ammunition. And I'm kind of, I can go a little bit overboard on those rules myself. So generally, if I'm going somewhere like that, I would like the firearm in one locked container and the ammo locked up in another container. That way, there's no, legally, there's no, oh, he could have gotten to it or anything like that. Do I have to go that extreme? Not always, but I like to be, I err on the caution of being safe than sorry. So kind of keep that in mind. Now, store it in an inaccessible area of your vehicle, like your trunk, where it's not within reach of you or anybody in the cabin, really. I would recommend going in the back. In fact, some vehicles have a spot under, like where you have to, where the spare tire is. A lot of vehicles now have storage back there, or some bins back there that you can lock, or that are in there, where you could actually put a container that's locked and then close it up, so it's kind of out of view. That's ultimately what I would recommend. Now, there are some federal laws. So there is it's called FOPA. It's Firearm Protection Act. This provides protection if the firearm is legal where you start your journey and where you end your journey. So we call these the pass-through states. If you're just passing through and you're not making any unnecessary stops. Unnecessary stops mean sightseeing. That could mean going to the bathroom. I understand that might be kind of necessary, but go to the bathroom before you get to that state. It would be, what would be considered a necessary stop would be an emergency. So flat tire, check engine light, something that happens that is, oh, I have to stop because something went wrong. Not, well, I forgot to get gas and I'm running out. That's kind of iffy, in my opinion. So I know this is what the Firearm Owner Protection Act will help protect you within certain reasons of theirs. I know some states are challenging that law. So when you're traveling, it is always safest to follow the most restrictive state rules along your route. Or if you don't like those state rules, finding an alternate around them. So going around that state and avoiding it. So if you're flying, flying with a firearm is a whole nother ball game. You always want to declare your firearm at check-in. Keep it unloaded, locked in a hard case. Ammo must be stored separately, and you have to follow the airline guidelines, okay? The bottom line for this, states don't have to honor it. It's not an automatic that they'll honor you. It always verify before you go. Always stay updated on any changes. So I don't care if last year you did this trip, if you're making that trip the same trip this year, double check to make sure nothing's changed. And when in doubt, I would recommend don't carry. Leave it safely stored at home. That way you don't even have to worry about it. And when if you're flying, make sure you call if they tell you something and it sounds iffy to you, I would get it in writing. I would make sure that they send that to you, but make sure you're following their TSA guidelines. Make sure you understand what you're doing there. Responsible carry means knowing the laws as well as your gear. So that's not just knowing what you're carrying, it's knowing the laws and where you're carrying it. Laws are there for your safety, and they're there for the safety of those states, okay? You may not agree with their laws. I don't always agree with their laws, but I'm going to have to follow their laws. If I go to a state, if I don't agree with their laws, then I just don't go to that state if I don't want to do that. If I go to their state, I have to abide by their laws. That's just the way the world works. Your future right to carry depends on you being informed, respectful, and a law-abiding gun owner. That's what you have to do. Just because you think that your state allows you and you should be able to do this in another state, that's not the case. That's not the way this works. And if you do it that way, you're going to find yourself in trouble. So understanding reciprocity and firearm laws isn't just a legal protection. It is part of being a responsible and educated gun owner. We're not handling a lot of firearms on this episode. It's kind of a boring point, but it's something that I really think that people need to understand before they get themselves in trouble. So whether you're traveling across the country, just across your hometown, make sure you take the time to know the rules and follow the laws of the area that you're in, and follow them with care. It's very simple to do, very easy to do. So make sure you also like, subscribe, and follow. You can do that on all platforms, YouTube, Rumble, Spotify, and then of course we're on all social media. Make sure you're going there. And as far as legalities go, if you have any questions, always consult a licensed attorney. That is always going to be recommended. But no matter your experience, make sure you keep learning, stay safe, and be ready. Thanks for joining us on Heartland Arms. We'll catch you on the next episode.